And you were live.
Good morning and aloha, snack bar, everyone. It's the one, the only Senor Silverback and his compatriot extraordinaire, CJ, the Denizen of the Deep. And we are back on another edition of Mornings with V and CJ. With that being said, you can follow us on Twitter at The Rogue Money. Check us out on Facebook at Rogue Money and the RogueMoney.net website, which is undergoing revamping, and we're trying to roll out version 4.0 very soon. Also, guys, check out our sponsors at MyFreedomNow.us. If you're suffering from debt, you need a credit tune-up, you need to get your life back together. The debt collectors and collections agencies are calling you, threatening to kidnap your firstborn. You need to check out MyFreedomNow.us. With that being said, CJ, what's going on, buddy? CJ.
Hey, good morning, V. How you doing? There we go. I'm back.
You scared me, CJ. Stop doing that.
It's always that start whenever I'm getting the streams going that I forget to unmute myself in time. So, but yeah, I'm doing great. Great, V. How you doing this morning?
Drinking my bulletproof coffee, bro. I threw in like 2 tablespoons of grass-fed butter, a tablespoon of virgin coconut oil, blended it up with some organic dark roast. Fired up, man. Fired up.
And that'll stay with you all day, right?
All day long. If you haven't tried bulletproof coffee, you need to do bulletproof coffee. That's it. That's all I got to say, man. It's the best stuff, period.
Interesting news cycle the last 24 hours.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Where do we begin?
Well, I think we have to talk a little bit around Sweden because there's a lot of disinformation coming about what's truly happening there, V.
Oh, I thought they want to show us how to integrate refugees successfully, CJ.
And I thought they said that there was really nothing going on here. Look the other way, nothing to see.
Right. I thought a place called Malmo, Sweden, is a safe place and that it's not a no-go zone. I thought that everything is okay there, CJ. What could possibly go on in Sweden besides meatballs?
Well, and again, the MSM, doubling, tripling down. It's even past that now. So obviously Trump held a speech in Florida this past weekend where he talked in specific around Sweden and the events that are happening there. So, of course, the MSM tries to make him look dumb and says, no, these things aren't going on. Here's the Sweden government saying, well, what's Trump talking about? So they really tried to cover this up. And then, boom, reports are coming out now in regards to Sweden and the fact that there's rioting, they're burning cars.
No.
They're throwing stones at anyone and everything. Yeah, so that portion of Sweden right now is truly on fire.
Oh my word, are you kidding me? There's actual video of this happening? Oh my god, the peaceful protesters from Rinkeby and Malmo, the asylum seekers, and there's hundreds of cars on fire here. They're overturning police cars and throwing rocks at the cops. I thought everything was hunky-dory.
And apparently there was actually a police, I'm not sure what they're called in Sweden, that actually came forth and said, no, we are really in turmoil right now. There's a lot going on, and just completely contradicted what the MSM would have us believe that this migrant test or migrant process that they're doing there is working when in fact it's not. V.
Absolutely, man. And that's the whole thing here. I mean, look at this, bro. And this is not just limited to Sweden. We've seen these Paris riots. We've seen the Swedish riots. We've seen the unrest in Germany. Europe is in shambles. Okay, it's an absolute shambles. So why on earth would they have the audacity? And this is what I'm saying. Either the leftists are on another planet. Their governments are so far out of touch, living in their libtard ivory white towers. They don't even see what's coming. And this is going to grab the Swedes by surprise, the Swedish establishment, in the sense that just like Donald Trump caught the establishment off guard, just like the Brexit caught the establishment off guard, okay? And just like Marine Le Pen is about to catch the French establishment off guard, okay? This is going to happen. I mean, speaking of Le Pen, man, I mean, she canceled a meeting with a Lebanese cleric. She said, "I'm not going to wear no hijab. Get the hell out of here." You know, and this is the type of things that people want to see. And I'll tell you right now, CJ. I tell you right now, the whole world is about done with these crazy leftists, bro.
Yeah, I think everywhere. I think the election cycle in the EU coming up will just be a bloodbath for the liberals, for the globalists, and everything they stand for. They can't cover this stuff up, obviously, because so many innocent people are impacted by these random acts of crime. They're seeing this happening. They're asking, what is happening to our country? They're no longer identifying with it, V.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, look at France. France is a huge ass problem, bro. I mean, their problem is this: France's Muslim population could grow quickly to 15 to 17 million, but no one knows how or precisely how much that number will be because there's a law in France prohibiting the official collection of ethnic data. They just count persons. They don't count. Next thing, they're not going to even count genders. Okay, this is a problem. Okay, this is a problem. I've seen the video of of them screaming "Aloha snack bar" on the way into the Paris subway. It's pretty funny. There's an old saying I remember years ago, decades ago, that you see if you're riding a train from Cannes all the way into or Bordeaux all the way into Paris, the closer you're getting to Paris, the language it begins to change. It goes from French to Arabic. I mean, this is what happens when you bring in migrants. And dude, it's funny. I was reading one of the comments yesterday. V, you need to go back to the European continent you came from. I'm not European, dumbass.
I saw that. That was hilarious. Go back to Europe, V.
You're so full of hate. You need to go back to Europe.
Right.
You're a freaking moron. I'm not European. I think I made that pretty clear.
Well, B, here's my advice to any of the candidates, whether it's Germany, France, wherever, that if you're coming to the United States, bring your own water, bring your own food so you don't have a sudden death in your hotel room.
Yeah. Oh. Jeez, bro. Seriously, like what happened with Churkin, bro?
Yeah, so of course, what the media is reporting is that he died suddenly.
That's nothing to see there, CJ. He just died suddenly.
Look the other way. Look the other way. Now, you have to remember that he was a long-standing, member of the UN for Russia, very outspoken critic of U.S. involvement in Syria.
Sure.
He had a great rapport with a lot of the other UN ambassadors, and the fact that they're claiming that all of a sudden he died of a heart attack.
Sure.
And this is a pattern. This isn't like just one every 5 years or something. I believe this is the third or fourth within the past couple of years. It just all of a sudden
the fourth Russian official dead in 2 months, bro.
2 months. It's 2 months, but there's nothing to see there once again.
No. At least be creative. Stop giving me this heart attack stuff. Do something creative. He died from excessive diarrhea. I mean, do something like that. Like he popped a blood vessel. He had to go to the bathroom. He was extremely constipated. He popped a blood vessel, which caused somehow a stroke to occur, and he died on the bowl. But this whole heart attack thing, everybody's dying before they're 65 from a heart attack. I mean, what is going on, dude? Come on.
Well, obviously we're seeing here that the deep state, that the shadow government, and very upset here. They're doing everything that they can. I was watching the news cycle last night, and it's just crazy that they're still trying to paint this narrative in regards to an affiliation between senior administrators in Donald Trump and Russia. And if people don't understand why they're doing that, is that he's trying to promote peace. He's trying to promote a relationship with them, and by them just constantly drilling on this relationship over and over, and having idiots like John McCain and his girlfriend Lindsey Graham come forth and promise all these things to Ukraine, and the fact that America's going to have their back. They're kind of trying to push Trump in a corner.
Yeah.
Now, how that directly ties in to these ambassadors, what could it be? Could it be that they have all the information, all the details in regards to the U.S. actions in Syria? Possibly. Who wants to speculate? Or could these be messages to Russia, to Trump administration saying, hey, this is what we're doing? A lot of these actions, I think, kind of coincide with some of the things that Trump is doing. For example, the cleansing of the 7th floor, which recently happened. So, again, it's all speculation at this point, V.
Yeah, absolutely, man. And it's a rough go right now for the Russians with all this crap happening. Who knows what kind of deep state actors are acting behind the scenes, man? And we also heard that some Russian troops were also killed in Syria the other day.
Yeah, and they're trying to, try to understand, these 4 troops were killed by a remote device, and what's the full story? Because they were killed, and the story is supposedly they were killed, some almost 5 or 6 days ago, and why this is just now being reported. A couple other Russian soldiers were harmed in the blast as well. But as this was happening, the ironic timing was the fact that Tillerson was beginning to have some conversations in regards to Syria and what was happening there. So was this a direct, message to him? Not even at the beginning did ISIS even take responsibility for the actions. Of course, they're going to take credit for about anything that happens there, right? They're going to say, yeah, that was us that did that. But yeah, deadly blasts, killed 4 of them. They're trying to understand, how this happened. It was on a convoy that was traveling. So more than likely, it's probably a device placed under the vehicle, something of that nature. But to try to understand the timing of it, and again, that this is around, this comes from the Russian Insider, and they specifically state our second point is a bit more nuanced, but we will still think it's interesting coincidence. February 16th was the same day that Sergei Lavrov met with Rex Tillerson for the first time in Germany.
Yeah. This is, look, man, I've said this before. We're on full-scale war, full-scale proxy war with the deep state. These guys are pulling all sorts of strings. They got all sorts of nefarious individuals working for them. They got all sorts of actors working for them. And this is what's going on, man. None of this stuff is coincidence. We both know that is the deep state's funds and protects and coddles ISIS. This whole thing, man, it's not good. It's really not good. And you know what? It's going to get a lot worse. I sense CJ before it gets better, bro.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think right now it's a matter of them sending messages, trying to protect possibly some of the information coming out. I wish it would just get exposed. I mean, I know it already has, but I wish that the information would just come out to say, listen, what happened in Syria is complete war crimes of what Hillary and what Obama did. It's time to investigate this, congressional hearings, bring them in. But the problem is that there are so many involved, and they're going to do everything they can, including, assassinate some of the people, some of the players, to try to protect themselves and to send messages.
Yeah, absolutely right, man. Here's the deal. He needs to move. I'm talking about Donald Trump. He needs to move aggressively. Laws and back channels and whatnot, and I don't know what the hell's going on in the background. But I hope and pray that he moves aggressively in ending this, that he moves aggressively in putting a stop to this proxy war. Because what's happening is this: unless this country begins to deal with the out-of-control intelligence apparatuses that are at work, unless these countries begin to understand that there is a serious problem when the intelligence service decides that it knows better than its commander-in-chief, that it decides that its viewpoint or its perspective and the scope and the reign of the rule of law, and they don't need to follow the law, and they can engage in a proxy war against their own country's leader, we have a serious problem. This needs to be addressed. And unless we go hard body against the Clintonistas, unless we go hard body against the Soroses and the Slims of this world, and we go full-on exposure, because these people are weak. It is time to put the coup de grace to these people, is what I'm saying. We have to move, and I hope that they move aggressively to take care of this, CJ.
Yeah, absolutely. They have to move aggressively, and then more important, they have to continue calling out the players, that are involved with it. Continuing to blast the MSM. I think he needs to come out and have some public comments in regards to the direct actions of John McCain and Lindsey Graham. Listen, they're not diplomats.
No,
they're not supposed to be traveling across the globe and speaking what U.S. policy is going to look like. That is not their role. That is not their responsibility to do that. So they are just out there completely undermining any effort from the U.S. State Department to advocate peace, to talk about what the future of Syria is going to look like, and then more importantly, get the American public to understand that there is nothing wrong with having a great relationship with Russia. There's nothing wrong with it. I mean, look what happened once they took over in Syria. The amount of time it took them. We were there for several years in Syria, funding, weaponizing. Russia comes in within a year and a half, if that. They have completely almost eradicated ISIS from Syria and turned it back over to the Syrian forces. So he has to continue to do all this, but I think he needs to go public regarding what McCain is doing, what Lindsey Graham is doing, and call out some of these players and shame them in public.
Absolutely, 1,000%, man. 1,000%. I totally agree with you on that, man. Totally agree with you on that. And it has to stop, because the roaches. People need to see these roaches, and we need to see these roaches run. Okay, because of this, bro. I mean, it's got to stop. It absolutely has to stop, man.
Yeah, I mean, because
I think James wants to jump on in.
Yeah, absolutely. I can send him the link real quick
he
if
wants
you
to
want.
talk about Chirk and McMaster. I think it's important. There's a link over there that people are missing. I think James has an angle on that. So jump on in, Jamie.
All right, I'll send him the link. Do you want to start taking a look around? Should we say Ukraine for him as well then, V?
Yeah, we can say the Ukraine for him, and let's go to the next piece of information.
How about the UK? You want to jump into that, and I'll get him the information to get in the best performing economy in Europe. Amazon analysis.
Yeah.
You want to jump into that, and I'll get him in. Okay, cool.
Absolutely. All right. Of all the talk with this Brexit stuff, if the UK leaves the EU, it will be utter destruction. The markets will fall. They will falter. Their currency will go to oblivion. There will be starving people in their streets, and there will be absolute bedlam and mayhem, and all these things will happen, and the sky will fall, and the chickens will sing. And what happened, guys? Nothing. In fact, the best performing economy in the EU half of 2016 was none other than the UK. While the rest of the EU was sinking, the UK was keeping and treading itself above water. They started going out there. Theresa May was actively, trying to get trade deals done. Talking with Donald Trump. Amazon says this. Amazon has stated that the entire Brexit thing is just nothing but hype. Invest in the country. They're creating 10,000 new jobs in the UK with further investments coming down. Because it's a vibrant economy. Amazon is really not a stupid company. They're pretty smart, okay? And for them to come on board and to do this, huge deal. And I think with that being said, I think we have the Russian on board, CJ. I see some sort of a wall thing going on over here. Guys. Well,
okay, I'm back. Hey, James. It looks like James, you're on. If you could just kill your cam, we can hear you. So hopefully you can hear us.
I can too. Okay, let me try to kill the cam.
Kill your cam.
It should just be right in the middle. It won't let me remotely do it from when you're on a phone app.
Yeah, go ahead, remotely do it, CJ.
It won't allow me
the cam symbol.
Try to.
Yeah. We can just cover it.
You need to get a bigger screen phone.
Yeah, and we're seeing those
upside down, dude. Yeah. We see your floor. That's great.
Perfect.
Done?
That's cool.
Yep, you're good.
outside view of Chicago, bro. That's it. Put it by the window.
Okay, Cam's killed.
Okay, there you go. Go for it.
Yeah, gentlemen.
What's
yeah,
going
I
on with
just wanted to
Turkey,
jump
man?
on board because of the untimely passing of Ambassador Vitaly Churkin, and also just I had a few thoughts about the appointment of H.R. McMaster as White House National Security Advisor. So just I'm going to be very brief. I understand you guys have got a lot of topics to cover, and I've been kind of reviewing the list of some of the things y'all had planned to discuss. So I'll just be brief. Regarding Ambassador Churkin, I just wanted to say that he died. I read the New York Post article about the circumstances of what had happened, and regarding the fact that he went into cardiac arrest allegedly, and while he was working at the UN mission, and then was taken to, I believe it was Columbia Presbyterian Hospital there in New York, in Manhattan. Can you hear me?
Yep, we
Loud
hear
and
you.
clear.
Okay. Yeah, so he was taken to Columbia Presbyterian, and he died within about an hour and a half of whatever the heart attack or whatever happened to him. It was pronounced dead before 11 a.m. on February 20th, Eastern time. So I was just, going over, I don't know if you guys have already mentioned it, but the fact that at least four Russian diplomats, and if you count former diplomats, 6 have died in unusual or violent circumstances in the last 3-4 months since the assassination of the Russian ambassador to Turkey in Ankara. So there's been a lot of speculation in Russian media and on the Runet about this and all these sort of things. But my main interest, what I found interesting about Churkin, Russia Insider ran a story today about it, that he actually met Donald Trump back in the late 1980s. I don't know if you guys were aware of this. When he was a Soviet diplomat.
Oh my God, it's the end of the world.
Yeah.
He was clearly recruiting him.
Yes. Obviously, he was recruiting. Even at that time, he knew Donald Ivanovich would one day be elected president of the United States when they first met in 1986, when he was married to Ivana. This was, I think, even before his first visit to Moscow, which was in '87 with Ivana, where he was visiting Red Square, doing the regular tour, and planning to build a huge hotel on the site of the old Intourist or somewhere thereabouts off Red Square. But what I wanted to say is that, Trump met Churkin, and Churkin remembered him fondly and said, some really nice things about him. Even before he got elected president, or I think shortly thereafter, he said, he remembered him as a very bright businessman, very enthusiastic. So that's kind of, I'm not saying they were bosom buddies or anything. And, this Sarah Kendzior lady, who I think is based in St. Louis, Missouri, is accurate that, with her conspiracy speculation, but she's a bit of a social, what I call the social justice cold warrior. But nonetheless, it's interesting coincidence. And that this came, by the way, after the Russian government announced, following the Munich Security Conference, where it was widely condemned and everything, and Lavrov came and delivered a tougher line that the Russian government was going to recognize passports and other birth certificates and other documents issued by the Lugansk and Donetsk People's Republics, the breakaway republics of the former Ukraine, now in Donbass, that have separated from the Kiev government's control. And that represents a tougher line on the part of the Kremlin, because essentially what they're saying to Poroshenko and to, more importantly, the U.S., to Washington, whoever's in charge in Washington, I still believe it is Trump, is that, there is a limited time frame or window for Poroshenko, whoever is in power in Kiev, to implement the Minsk agreements before, Moscow could, in theory, accelerate to full legal recognition of the republics, which would imply issuing these people, hundreds of thousands of them, Russian passports and making them Russian citizens without, of course, formally annexing the territory, which has already been done in South Ossetia and Abkhazia and could be done. It's been partially done in Transnistria, this breakaway republic that separated from Moldova in the early 90s as well. So, you know, basically the Russians were saying, what do you want to do, Poroshenko? You know, Mike Pence might tell you some kind words on the sidelines of this Munich Security Conference last weekend, but it doesn't really mean anything. You've got to crap or get off the pot, because the Minsk II agreements, for those in this audience who don't know, requires the Ukrainian government to do certain things long before it can hope for restoring control over the border between the Donbass and Russia, which isn't going to happen anyway, because they're not going to implement the things that are required, which include allowing local elections under Ukrainian law, which, you know, Harley Schlanger brought up, I think the last time he was on the program, V, if you remember, that a German diplomat got in a lot of trouble with Kiev and was called in for explanations because he basically said, well, why can't you guys have elections under Ukrainian law, even if there might be Russian troops present or whatnot? We didn't have a problem holding elections under East German law before we reunified the country, when there were still Soviet troops in East Germany in 1990 on reunification of the two Germanys. So, right. You know, the point being that there are trends behind the scenes. The pressure is building, both publicly and privately, on the Ukrainian government. And whenever that seems to be happening, or whenever you see things moving in a direction of a peaceful settlement of the conflict, there tends to be provocation.
Right, and that's why we're seeing like a formation of a new Maidan that is occurring in the Ukraine. It seems like, you know, things in Syria are starting to quiet down or beginning to, you know, gain control. Now all of a sudden Ukraine's starting to swirl again with the same neo-Nazis, the same characters, these disgusting sycophants who need to go, man.
Yeah, but I don't think they're going to be very successful. The thing is that you know, the most likely way to remove Poroshenko, a new Maidan that's really going to be bloody and violent, is not really, you know, in the interests of the U.S. I mean, in terms of the U.S. embassy in Kiev, I mean, that would be kind of embarrassing after all that's happened and all the supposed progress of the last few years and all the billions of dollars of IMF money that's been poured into the country, most of which has been stolen by the oligarchs, by the way, who are bankrupt. Right. They cannot, you know, fully service their debts. They're being, pretty much all of them are being sued in one form or the other in you know, London or UK courts, because they can't service their debts for all their industrial enterprises. So the foreign creditors are suing them, trying to get the money that they're owed out of them, or some of it. So you know, I don't think that it's going to be like the old Maidan. I think what you're more likely to see is some sort of kind of palace coup type thing against Poroshenko, sure, where they basically decide they're going to get rid of him, because obviously the impeachment of Yanukovych was not carried out according to Ukrainian constitutional principles. So it wouldn't be much of a stretch to violate the Ukrainian constitution again, or just get him out of there through you know, some parliamentary maneuvers. Just basically if you could pay off enough people. Now the question is, where's the money going to come from to pay off all these deputies? You know, there's already been something of a PR campaign to prepare the way for that, because you know, you have articles. I don't know if you guys probably haven't seen them in Forbes, where you have people from the former Yanukovych party, the Party of Regions. I think they call it the opposition bloc now. Basically saying, you know, look, we're not going to be able to get Crimea back for any time soon. We have to acknowledge reality. And if we want to make peace with the people of Donbass, we got to stop this war, and we got to get rid of Poroshenko. He's in the way. Him and his cronies are corrupt. They've violated, you know, the promise of the revolution of dignity and all this and that, and they've got to go. And probably the most interesting figure by far is not the Hillary Clinton of Ukraine, as I call her, Yulia Tymoshenko, the gas princess. that some in our audience remember from the first Maidan, the 2004 Orange Revolution, which was sponsored by, which George Soros bragged about sponsoring, along with the U.S. Embassy and all the various, the usual suspects, USAID, NED, International Republican Institute with McCain's cronies, and the Friedrich, all the Stiftungen, the foundations in Germany that are linked to the political parties of Germany, the CDU and the SPD. Something's gonna happen. That is certainly the consensus in Moscow, that they have the high cards right now because the Ukrainian economy is in such bad shape that something's got to give soon. Because they're already bypassing, as much as they possibly can, Ukraine as an export route to the west through the Nord Stream 2.0 pipeline. They're going to expand, and the existing Nord Stream route is, I think, now running at least 50% capacity. It could be easily expanded beyond that. And then you've got the deal they're trying to ramrod through with the Turks for South Stream. So in about 2 or 3 years, Ukraine is not going to matter as a transit country anymore.
No, it doesn't.
They're going to lose hundreds of millions, literally hundreds of millions annually, almost into the billion in transit fees. And when those go, and the IMF money dries up, what is left? There's nothing.
That's what I'm saying. The only state solution that's left. Correct. The only thing that'll be left is going to be the oligarchs, which will turn into warlords who will divvy up the country. I used to think that too, and that was kind of my view, is that they were going to try to Syrianize Ukraine and kind of carve it up among warlords. But I don't think they're going to be able to pull that off, because most of these oligarchs just aren't cut out for warlordism. They just want to get the hell out of Dodge with their loot, what's left of it, right? That's also true, right? They get the hell out of that. So the only thing left is for the some even more darker, more insidious members to rise up in Ukraine. It'll be a failed state. It'll be a hub of human and narco trafficking. That's Ukraine's future. Well done. Well done, Ukraine.
Unless a new leadership comes to power, or the UN says, no, we're not going to let that scenario come to pass. If we get a Le Pen and some people with some balls in Europe to finally stand up to it and say, we don't need millions of Ukrainian refugees streaming out of the western part of the country, while the people empty out of the eastern part of the country into Russia. We need to find a way to stabilize this country. And obviously, the only way you can even have any hope to do that is, first of all, to end the war, because the war is draining massive amounts of resources out of the state budget and out of, and of course, demoralizing the country as well, because you've got, from the most recent outbreak of fighting, hundreds of young men came back in coffins. As usual, they downplayed the casualties, said, oh, it's just a few dozen guys, maybe maximum 3 or 4 dozen got killed, and the real number is 300 or 400, right, times 2 wounded. So all the hospitals beyond the Donbass region, west of the region, were full, all the way to Kherson on the border with Crimea.
James, real quick, there's speculation coming out in regards to this plan, and the New York Times is reporting it. That's why I question it. However, there apparently Andrei Artemenko, Ukrainian MP, had devised a plan to potentially, basically, for Russia to pay Ukraine to lease Crimea for the next 100 years. And at the same time, Eastern forces vacate out of Ukraine from Russia. Now, obviously, the Russians came forward and said, no, that's not going to happen. But prior to, what Russia was leasing Crimea from Ukraine.
They were leasing the bases, correct, on a decades-long basis. The problem was that the lease was coming up, and the forces that were backed by Soros and the CIA and others were agitating to revoke the lease even before. This was before the Maidan, by the way. This is in 2013, 2012. It was already looming as an issue. And the Russians obviously wanted, with Yanukovych, to extend the lease to, I think, 2050 or something, for another 30 years at least. But they were not able to get it done before Yanukovych was overthrown. I think this whole peace plan idea, it's not going to work for a variety of reasons. But it does illustrate, at least CJ, that there are various parties, none of whom, by the way, these MPs, they for the most part, let's not kid ourselves, they all have at least one oligarch patron. Rinat Akhmetov is the principal one for the opposition bloc, because Akhmetov was the guy who, at the start of the war in Ukraine, tried to play off both sides against the middle and basically pay off both sides to protect his industrial assets, which, he felt like he had to do. The reason, for example, the Lugansk and Donetsk Republic forces backed by some Russian advisors didn't take Mariupol in September of 2014 was because they would have destroyed Akhmetov's huge metalworks in that city. And that city's basically a company town anyway. I mean, it's like 500, 600,000 people. And Akhmetov's plant is the biggest employer in town. So, of course, he didn't want to lose access to international markets. So the Azov battalion came in and took back power. There never was a very serious, use of rebel forces there because of that factor. But what you're seeing is what I was talking to V about earlier, is that you have all these different oligarchs that are trying to salvage what they can out of the situation, and they're all kind of backing their own politicians. The most intriguing one is not, like I said, Yulia Tymoshenko, the Hillary Clinton of Ukraine, because she's pretty much worn out her political worth to anybody, least of all Washington. She was the one who was a few weeks back was chasing Trump to the bathroom, trying to get him to say something about Ukraine. Well, he was attending some prayer breakfast, I believe, which that's a whole nother story. The whole certain, evangelical or Baptist, more like weird Baptist sects that kind of, took off in Ukraine during the 90s. Totally different, long story there. But the point being that, Nadezhda Shavchenko, the pilot, who was a member of the, I think it was Adar battalion, and she was charged and convicted of murdering 2 Russian citizens after she was extradited or grabbed, some people claim, kidnapped to Russia. She was released, and after serving her time in prison, unexpectedly went from being this, this Joan of Arc ultra-nationalist firebrand for Ukraine to being accused of being a traitor, because she said, we have to listen to the people of Donetsk and Lugansk. We have to stop shelling them if we ever want to get them back and win some actual hearts and minds and reunite Ukraine. And give anybody in Crimea a reason to want to come back to Ukraine, much less.
Right.
Which, of course, isn't going to happen. But at least, like you said, CJ, there are some peace plan efforts, and it's interesting to me how the New York Times tries to give it a spin of, oh, it's so bad that Trump's attorney, Michael Cohen, is off. He's just off doing this. They're doing this all behind the back of somebody. Well, no, they're not. I mean, you have to have people you can trust who can put out the first feelers so that you can start to come to some kind of negotiating process. You don't have a meeting you can have a meeting between Lavrov and Tillerson with, a very modest agenda, like what happened in Bonn the other day. You can't have Putin and Trump meeting, and they don't even know what even the bare minimum of what the parameters are going to be for them to negotiate, right?
Right.
That all takes months of advanced planning and talks behind the scenes to happen. And of course, what they're trying to do is they're trying to criminalize any or say that anybody who talks or negotiates with the Russians is a traitor, from this Flynn hysteria. And it's just incredibly destructive. And of course, you have idiots like McCain and Graham who can't even notice that the phone numbers they're being called from some Kiev or even Russian areas, it doesn't match the one that Poroshenko called them from previously, who get punked by these Russian pranksters posing as Poroshenko.
And there it goes.
We
We need
tweeted out
to give you
one of those
lethal
videos.
weapons. That's what we need to do. We need to give you lethal weapons.
We need to give you lethal weapons, and I'm with you. And we're I don't know what the president's going to do, but we're with you, Mr. President of Poroshenko.
Yes. Freaking John, make you insane.
Anyway, it's not my best impression. I can't.
It's very good. It's
excellent impression, but it's my best attempt.
It's excellent
At a Mick Insane impression.
Cool deal. James, man, thank you so much.
Yeah, and one other thing, about HR McMaster, I'll log off here, but I just wanted to say, I think he's a really great pick. And
Yeah,
what's interesting to me about McMaster that just before I go, I wanted to say is that he put together a study of the army looking at how the Russians supported the Donbass forces fighting the Ukrainian army in 2014, 2015. And what's interesting is that in spite of the fact that a lot of the articles about it, Defense One and Politico, tended to let us say, give too much credence to some of the Ukrainian army's claims about, the number of actual Russian regulars and irregulars they fought who came across the border. I have to say that McMaster at least understands the fundamental fact that the U.S. Army in its current configuration is not even close to being ready to fight a land war on Russia's border. Not even close. It would just turn into a massacre of our side.
Right.
And his adjutant put it even more bluntly, and the article was picked up by Zero Hedge in like 2015, where he said, if I had my same unit from Desert Storm that wiped out this Iraqi brigade in minutes, and we tried to fight the Russians, somewhere in Ukraine or the Baltics, we just get our asses handed to us.
Yep.
And so at least that sense of healthy realism coming from the military side is helpful. Because a guy like McMaster, nobody can even remotely accuse him of being soft on Russia or say, well, you flew over to the RT banquet for the 10th anniversary and sat at the same table as Putin. Now, even though the reality is, some Czech guy who was there said that maybe Putin and Flynn exchanged, 10 words between them, but it doesn't matter. A lot of politics is about perception, and it's like the old expression goes, only Nixon can go to China. And maybe that's, it's going to take a tough guy like McMaster who has that credibility and who criticized the generals who went along with LBJ in the Vietnam War to sit down with Gerasimov and sit down with Shoigu and, hammer out some kind of agreement.
Yeah. Excellent.
All right. Well, that's all I have for today, gentlemen. Enjoy the rest of the show, and thanks to all the Rogue Money listeners and readers, and keep reading the site, everyone. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, James, for coming on board and sharing that vital pieces of intelligence and putting some perspectives on this whole entire thing with Shurkin and what's going on with Russia. It's very key. It's very vital, especially with all this Russian hysteria that's out there, man. It's unreal.
All right. God bless. Have a great morning.
All right. Take care, James.
All right. CJ, let's close out with the last two things. How high will Bitcoin go? And then we'll talk about the consumer debt levels again, bro.
Yeah, just amazing when you see Bitcoin, and again, it just continues to go. It's trading at 1,110 right now, and it's up almost 5%. And when you take a look at it, I think what's driving it too is just the amount of other countries that are embracing it, understanding its utility, the purpose of it. The only thing that I would think that could hold Bitcoin back would, in fact, be government involvement, where the federal government gets involved to try to make it part of their currency base and really undermine the effort of Bitcoin. So again, it just continues soaring to new levels, and it's going to be a very exciting year for Bitcoin.
I agree wholeheartedly, man. The cat's out of the bag, the genie's out of the bottle, and there's no way they can contain it. They can try, like they're starting to realize more and more, trying to create their own currency blockchains without the type of proof of work that Bitcoin provides for the Bitcoin blockchain. It's impossible and futile. So they have to just wave the flag and understand that, hey, man, Bitcoin is here to stay. They're not going to stop it. Consumer debt level, CJ, what's going on over there, man?
Yeah, just one of those signs that we continue to take a look back at 2008 and all the signs that were there in regards to the economy and things that were happening. And it appears that consumer household debt has climbed to 12.58 trillion, which again is just a shad tie of the 2008 peak. And we all know what happened back in 2008.
Yeah. This is America's love for cheap credit. This is what you get. $2.5 trillion, $12.5 trillion, basically $12.6 trillion in household debt. Sting. You have other countries in the world that are blown by a much more well-padded middle class, man. Well, I mean, it says right here, most increase due to credit card debt, followed by student loans. These are the two things that are killing all of us. According to the report, credit card balances increased by 4.3% since the previous quarter, and student loan balances increased by 2.4%. Credit card balances increased to almost $780 billion, man.
Yeah, they started easing, the credit criterias and boom, putting credit back in everyone's hand to try to keep the economy going.
Yeah.
And this is the result.
It's unreal. And you guys got to realize, okay, these creditors, they create $780 billion in credit, but they already get paid on that. That you sign that paper, you give authorization, okay, yeah, I'll take that $3,000 line of credit. Boom, the credit card company's already been paid the money, but they've already been paid, and they're going to use that as, chop it up in the back end to whatever gambling nonsense they do in the back end. And who stands to lose here? It's again the person. So again, guys, if you need debt help, myfreedomnow.us. Unreal. CJ, what else you got, man?
That's it for now, V. That's it for now. So yeah, we
Awesome.
later on trading territory with Dex later on today. I believe, is it 2:00?
2:00. Absolutely.
2:00. Yep, 2:00. So really, that's all I have, V.
You got it, guys. Thank you so much for listening in. We ran a little bit over today because of we had the Russian analysts come in and share some key pieces of intel. With that being said, check us out on roguemoney.net, at the Rogue Money on Twitter, and the Rogue Money Facebook page. With that being said, we are V and CJ. We are over and we're out. Take it away, CJ.